This is a quick talk where I'm taking you with me in my, trying to clarify a specific space in the market. Actually, so it's a little bit more of a market talk than a technical talk. If you want to solve this kind of problem in the market, how can you set up your organization and your business? There is actually a lot of talk about EMSs out there. Behind the meter, before the meter, but yeah, not enough clarity what you will actually get. I'm from Seita, a software startup, with Felix, who's sitting here, and a couple of team members. We are the makers of the Flex Measures project in LF Energy. And well, very quickly, behind the meter is where you find these kind of things, and you find a lot of assets, specifically in e-mobility and heating. If you look at buildings, offices, small business, and so on, with the side, of course, of things in front of the meter that you can't ignore, like grid congestion and dynamic tariffs. And this is the AI picture of this, how it looks like if you orchestrate all of that in the building, however many flexible assets you have, and so on. And in the end, why is this actually interesting? It's because globally a big market that is globally addressable, and that's why we also thought open sourcing this is a good idea, because actually behind the meter is across the world more likewise in countries than before the meter, where you, as the Jerka has said, you always have to see, okay, which actual markets are in place in that country. But behind the meter, the world looks a bit more alike. But now this is actually the slide, the main slide of this talk, where I try to categorize for myself. Okay, what do we do? And we differ a lot from a lot of other companies that I see in this space that just say we do EMS. Full stop. I will go through this list, and I can't, of course, go into each of these points very deeply due to time. But I hope it's maybe somewhat clear. So first, there's some levels even in this EMS, even if you're behind the meter. The first is that you actually have to talk to the assets, and we call that often a gateway. On-site EMS is also a nice term that's involving. You actually have to talk to them, gather the data, and so on. Then you have something you can call a cloud EMS. It can also run on-premise, of course, but it would be gathering cloud data like weather forecasts and so on, prices, and actually have some more heavier computation for these, making the optimal plans. That's what we are involved in. And you want some market access, especially if you're actually taking part in some more sophisticated opportunities. You can do all of three of them, but this is actually a high ticket. If you're good in all three of those, you're a big company, I would say. The next is, are you doing all of this? Are you basically a one-stop shop that can do everything, or are you specializing in certain things here, and who are you offering services to? So that's a big marketing question, of course. And certainly, when you're starting to optimize, so that's basically here in the cloud EMS part, then the question is, well, what are your goals actually? Are you simply optimizing one device, like just the heat pump, for instance? Is that all you care about? Are you a specialist on that? Or would you be able to run a whole fleet there in front of the large office building? There's a lot of chargers, and you have to optimize across all of them. Maybe even taking the heat pump in the building also into account, so basically a fleet of diverse devices. Or are you actually solving a grid problem? Is that the main thing you're solving? Is that, in the Netherlands, for instance, grid congestion is such a problem that a lot of these problems are solved with that in mind only. Fourth, the sector and commodity scope. So there's, of course, a lot of players in this EMS field that say, we optimize batteries. So do you have batteries in your house, or is the business buying a battery to be more able to ingest more of its own solar power or whatever? We do that for you. Or you have, we're an EV optimization startup. We have an EV EMS. That's what we do. HVAC, heating. So you find more players that do one of those. But of course, you could also say, well, we're going across the sectors. Design and operation is a distinction between doing that in real time, which is what this story usually is about, you're managing. But of course, in a lot of projects, especially when you're talking about larger investments, you want to analyze beforehand as well. So what battery size would be good for you? Given these constraints of the grid capacity, can you afford to have actually, order 15 EV chargers? Can you go to 20? Would that even work? So analysis and operation are two very important phases that often are offered by distinct parties. That's an important question to ask. Finally, how does the business logic actually work? Do you have business rules? That's what I mean actually with if-else, which is often what you find on on-site EMSs, and that goes a long way. Or do you have a nice algorithm in place, maybe even an open one? Or do you have a super sophisticated deep learning thing that is a black box? And that also goes into this next point a bit. Are you open with that? Can I talk to you about how you do this, your business rules or your algorithms? Talking about open, do you have open protocols? Can I export my data? So the openness is for me a seventh decision, let's say, you want to make. And I will close by very briefly saying that we at Seita have this approach. So open source that you know already, but we also offer both a simulation of your complex behind-the-meter problem, but then mainly a cloud EMS to run in real time. Here's some visualizations that I don't have time to have on the slides very long. So it's dynamic visualization of how the site operates. So you can play back in time. Here's some stuff about fleets. So with us, it's not only one asset, but here's a fleet of EV sessions that charge immediately, and then we optimize them to charge at different times. But to close with the same slide again, I was coloring in how we at Seita made these decisions, right? So basically, this is now a vendor profile in the behind-the-meter EMS space, and you'll find other vendors, and they would have a different pattern here, a different DNA, how they actually operate in that behind-the-meter EMS space. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. Maybe you have time for a question.